This is what remains of the Arctic. This is what will become of our world if we don't take care of it. You are watching this channel. The ice caps are melting at an alarming rate, causing untold devastation to the wildlife who live there. Among the most threatened are the polar bears, forced to swim further and further in search of food. In this desperate time, one mother bear is separated from her cub. But fortunately, a team of scientists and environmental activists were able to witness the sad event and immediately launched a daring rescue mission to save the little one. But unfortunately, the cub was too far away, and they had to make an extremely risky decision. Join us today as we recount the incredible rescue of the last polar bear. As always, our story begins in the Arctic, where researchers have been tracking this family of polar bears for several years. They use a variety of methods to observe the bears, including drones, satellites, and icebreaker ships. Their goal is to learn as much as possible about the bears' behavior in order to better protect them. On this day, they get a call from one of their drones, reporting that a polar bear cub has been spotted alone on a drifting ice floe. The team immediately springs into action, as they know that the cub must be rescued before it's too late. The scientists and environmentalists race against the clock to reach the cub before it's too late. As they navigate the treacherous waters, they face extreme cold, strong winds, and towering waves. But despite the harsh conditions, they remain determined to save the cub. The team soon spots the cub on the ice floe, and it's clear that it's alone and in danger. The cub is scared and weak, and it's clear that it needs help. The team carefully approaches the cub and tries to assess its condition. It's dehydrated and undernourished, and it's clear that it won't survive if it's not rescued. As the team works quickly to get the cub back to safety, they face a number of challenges. The weather is rapidly deteriorating, and the ice floe is moving further out to sea. Time is running out, and the team must act fast. Despite the danger, the team is determined to save the cub. They work together to secure a life raft and bring the cub back to safety. The rescue operation is fraught with peril, but the team's determination and skill eventually pays off. They successfully bring the cub back to shore, and it's taken to a wildlife rehabilitation center, where it can receive the care it needs to survive. As the sun sets over the Arctic, the team celebrates their success. They have saved the cub's life and given it a chance at a better future. But the journey has been fraught with danger, and they know that the fight to save the polar bears is far from over. As the video fades, we are left with a sense of hope for the cub's future and a renewed determination to protect these magnificent creatures and the environment they depend on. In the heart of the Arctic Circle, amidst the towering icebergs and freezing winds, lived a polar bear family, a mother and her yearling cub. Their days were filled with hunting for seals, fishing through holes in the ice, and their nights were spent cuddling together for warmth in their snow den. The bond between them was unbreakable, their love for each other unconditional. But the world they lived in was changing. The ice caps were melting at an alarming rate, causing the sea levels to rise and the habitat of the polar bears to shrink. The temperatures were rising, causing the ice to crack and break, forcing the polar bears to swim further and further in search of food. The mother bear, a seasoned hunter, was adept at catching fish and bringing back nourishment for her cub. But this year, the fish seemed to have disappeared, and the mother bear was struggling to find enough food for herself and her cub. Days turned into weeks, and the cub began to suffer. It became weak and emaciated, its once thick and fluffy fur becoming matted and dirty. The mother bear, desperate to save her cub, started to venture further and further out into the sea, hoping to find food for her cub. But the further she went, the more dangerous the journey became. The ice was thinner and more treacherous, and the water was colder and more unforgiving. One day, as the mother bear was swimming in the frigid waters, she felt the ice beneath her crack and break. She struggled to stay afloat as she was separated from her cub by the widening crack in the ice. She roared in fear and desperation, but her cries were lost in the howling winds. She tried to swim towards her cub, but the current was too strong, and she was swept further away. Meanwhile, on the other side of the crack, the cub whimpered and cried for his mother. He was too small and weak to swim across the widening gap, and he was terrified of the cold, dark waters that surrounded him. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the ice, the mother bear managed to swim back to the edge of the crack. She looked around frantically, searching for help. She had to do something to save her cub. At that moment, she spotted a group of humans on the other side of the ice. She roared loudly, hoping to get their attention. And miraculously, they heard her cry. A team of scientists and environmental activists who had been tracking the polar bears for months finally spotted the cub on the ice floe. They knew that they had to act fast. With the sun setting and the temperature plummeting, the cub was in grave danger. The team immediately sprang into action. They launched a helicopter and an icebreaker ship towards the cub's location. The helicopter was equipped with a crane and a life raft, which would be used to bring the cub back to safety. The icebreaker ship, meanwhile, was tasked with reaching the cub first and assessing the situation. As the helicopter approached the cub, the wind snatched at the little bear's fur, making him shiver. The noise of the helicopter blades filled his ears, and he looked up in fear. But when he saw the humans with the life raft, he felt a glimmer of hope. With a swift and precise maneuver, the helicopter lowered the life raft into the water near the cub. An environmental activist in the raft reached out a gloved hand towards the frightened cub and gently coaxed him inside. Once the cub was in the raft, the helicopter lifted it up and flew it back to the ship. As the cub was brought on board, the scientists and activists rushed to his aid. They wrapped him in warm blankets, fed him milk, and monitored his vital signs. The cub, exhausted and traumatized, snuggled into the warmth and gradually began to calm down. Meanwhile, the environmentalists on the ship worked tirelessly to reach the mother bear. The icy waters were a challenge, but they were determined to reunite the mother and cub if it was at all possible. However, after searching for hours, they couldn't find the mother bear. The scientists believed that the mother bear had likely perished in the freezing waters. With heavy hearts, they carried the cub off the ship and placed him in a waiting vehicle. They then rushed him to a wildlife rehabilitation center, where a team of experts was ready to care for him. At the rehabilitation center, the cub was given a thorough checkup by a veterinarian. The little bear had suffered greatly, but the vet was optimistic. With round-the-clock care and a nutritious diet, the cub would make a full recovery. News of the cub's rescue spread like wildfire. People from all over the world sent messages of support and hope for the cub's recovery. Social media was flooded with pictures of the adorable cub and updates on his progress. The cub, named Hope by the caretakers, became a symbol of resilience and hope for the future. As the days turned into weeks, Hope began to thrive under the care of the rehabilitation team. He was playful and curious, exploring his enclosure and interacting with the people who cared for him. The team was overjoyed to see him grow stronger and healthier every day. But the road to recovery was not easy. Hope had suffered severe trauma and had to undergo extensive therapy to overcome his fear and build his confidence. There were setbacks and challenges, but Hope's determination and the dedication of his caretakers helped him through. As Hope grew older, the decision was made to release him back into the wild. The team had worked closely with wildlife officials to ensure that Hope was ready to survive on his own. They had equipped him with a GPS collar so that they could track his movements and monitor his well-being. On the day of his release, a crowd of onlookers had gathered to wish Hope well. As he was driven to his enclosure, the gates opened and Hope disappeared into the tall grass. The team watched as he disappeared from sight, their hearts filled with a mix of emotions. They were happy to see him free, but they would miss him dearly. In the weeks and months that followed, the team tracked Hope's movements and monitored his progress. They were overjoyed to see that he was thriving in the wild and had successfully adapted to his environment. The story of Hope, the last polar bear, touched the hearts of people around the world. It was a story of survival, resilience, and hope for the future. The cub who had been abandoned and alone had found a second chance at life, thanks to the quick reactions and dedication of the scientists and environmentalists who had rescued him. As we reflect on Hope's journey, we are reminded of the importance of protecting our planet's wildlife and environment. The polar bears are facing a tough battle for survival, and it's up to us to ensure that they have a future. By supporting conservation efforts and making changes in our own lives, we can help protect these magnificent creatures and ensure that they continue to roam the earth for generations to come.